I remember being 23 years old, sitting in my truck. Haley had just told me that if I wanted to not marry her and move on, that it was okay with her, that she knew that she could not give me children, she could not give me the life that she thought I deserved, that our life was going to be broken. And, I told her I'm not going anywhere, like, I'm here to stay. But I went out in my truck and I remember crying and sobbing. I'm 23, found out I can't have children the way I want to, and I just don't see a future for me. I don't see, I know what my life is going to be. Doctor's appointments, bills, heartache, everything's going to be harder. Anything we want to do, it's just going to be a difficult life. And so I was sad. I was feeling sorry for me. I knew what was coming. Yeah. And I felt that I was at the end of the road. This is it for me. I don't have really much to look forward to.
Yeah.
I thought my life was over. And then as I'm sitting on the stage on Dr. Phil, I'm like, here I am, 10 years later, and I'm telling you the story. If you don't believe there's a bigger plan, or that, if you stay true to your beliefs and doing the right thing, that God's got your back, then I don't know what to tell you, because it's happened to me.
Welcome back to the Give Back Podcast. This episode is sponsored by Tomahawk Targets. It's a company I created. We manufacture and sell axe throwing targets. If you haven't checked them out, check them out at tomahawktargetsatx.com. My name is Greg Kelly. This is my co-host, Zeke Pike.
And guys, do me a favor before we start this episode. Like, comment, and subscribe because, guys, we got part 2, and we have an amazing guest, Taylor Odlozil, a good friend of mine. He's become one of the boys, and I'm so excited for part 2. We had an absolutely phenomenal result on episode 1, and I think a lot of your audience, I know our audience was extremely moved and extremely touched, and we got a lot of good feedback that I'm excited to touch on today. And brother, welcome back to the Get Back.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. And always love coming on here and got to know you two guys. So it's been great. And it's a good place to share my story. And I was pretty impressed with the success that we did have on episode 1. I mean, it was awesome.
I think that speaks a lot to you though, and the power of your story and Haley's story, and the way that you're able to articulate and share it, I think is something that is profound.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm excited again to just get to dive deeper into it, because I think God's given you a really unique gift to share her story and your guys' story together.
I appreciate that. And I mean, I think my mom actually commented on the YouTube, and that's typical mom fashion. And thanking you guys, and she still just can't believe, she's still getting comments from just amazing people that have supported Haley and me and y'all, and just saying the nicest things to her, which she loves. And I'm just very blessed that I have this platform to share Haley's story, my story, what I've been through, and if it can impact somebody else and improve their life or help them better themselves, then that's what I'm here to do. So.
Yeah, and I think it's a little bit more informal, this type of podcast, just because we've gotten to know each other so well.
Mm-hmm.
After our last podcast, we went and watched some midget wrestling. That was a really good time. We had a blast, right, at the crossover at the field house, and that was really cool. So I think the cool thing about now is now we have a true relationship and a true brotherhood. And I think I just want to give you the safe space to share anything that you want to go into that we've already kind of discussed, and we can lead into it however you want to lead into it.
Yeah.
Okay. But I want the floor to be yours. I know our audience wants to hear more from you. I know your audience wants to hear more from you. So I want to give you the floor. We can go whatever direction you want to go. We can go down whatever rabbit hole you want to go down.
Okay.
As you know, this is a safe space for you, brother.
That works. And I never thought I'd be able to say midget wrestling was something that I would take part in, but that actually was so much fun and
so hilarious
and way funnier than I thought it would be. So I did enjoy that. And, going on the podcast last time, I'd never done anything like that. So it was a new experience for me. And it gave me just as long as I wanted to just talk, and that was really nice. And just being uninterrupted and like just telling the story. And, like, cause if you go on like an interview for like the news or something, they're asking questions, you got to keep it under 5 minutes, whatever that is. So it was nice to just like be, informal and just let it out. And I think a lot of people relate and really enjoy hearing it in that platform. I think that's why podcasts do so well now. But it was enjoyable to do that. It was different listening to myself and hearing how I picked up on some things I say like as filler words, which drove me crazy. But I think we all do.
I don't think we and the audience picked up on that, because your episode, dude, it resonates so much with people. Where, I mean, you read the comments, people were absolutely changed, because you're a great content creator. You're great at telling stories. You're great on filling people in on how your life's doing, how Weston's doing. And I think you've grown a very big admiration from your following on how authentic and transparent you are. It's really hard nowadays in this life, in this world, transparency and authenticity. And so I think this episode that we previously did, you had a space to be able to talk and actually have conversations in depth instead of just surface area or maybe even your struggles, and which we'll be able to get on that. But
we had a lot of success too. I mean, in terms of the way that viewers, not even our audience, but others picked up on it. I mean, People Magazine did an episode, but not only that, I mean, let's talk about the opportunity that, I don't want to spoil, I don't want to be the one to spoil it, but I want you to tell everybody, because I think that's an extremely incredible opportunity for you. But I think this, and you sharing some of the things that you've never gotten to share before, I think people for the first time got to really see in depth. You only see so much in those reels, right? There's only 60 seconds. You only get so much time to be able to, and it's hard to really go into details. So,
What opportunities? What happened after the podcast?
Yeah. So, I think I told y'all when I was here, like, that I have amazing supporters online. Like, they're very loyal. Yeah. They're very supportive. They care a lot about me, Weston, Haley, the story. They're very protective of it. And so I think I kind of told y'all, I was like, this could do well. Like, people, I think, are going to really like to hear more. They ask me questions all the time. And so I really didn't know exactly how it was going to turn out. And then we went live, and it went way better than I ever thought it would. And so many people loved hearing more in depth of the moments, the tough moments. And, I think in the middle of that week, I got an email from some lady from Dr. Phil. And I get a lot of spam email because I have my email on my page, and I was this close to deleting it because it just didn't look right. And I was like, yeah, right. And so then I was like, wait a minute. So I looked up this lady's name on LinkedIn, and she does work for Dr. Phil. And I'm like, whoa, so I emailed back, and I was like, yes, I'm interested in doing this. I'd like to know more before I say yes. Yeah. So, it was like maybe an hour after that, I get a phone call, from the lead producer, and he's super nice. And I can tell, he's a little nervous on the phone, and he tells me, he's like, Taylor, I've been following you from the beginning. Like, I'm almost kind of nervous talking to you. And I'm like, you're nervous? Like, this is Dr. Phil we're talking about here. Like, this is crazy. And he was just so complimentary. And he was like, I was so in tune to Haley's story, and I was a loyal follower from the beginning. It was like, we'd have meetings here at the office, and we wouldn't close the meeting without checking if you had posted something that day to see how Haley was doing. Like, that's how in tune.
Wow. So the whole office was...
Yeah, the whole office was like into it and really supporting Haley and really hoping that she'd come through and following the journey. So that was really powerful to hear. And he said, so we're going to do an episode about grief. And as soon as I heard about that, he's like, I know exactly who I want to book, and you're the one that came to my mind. And I was just like blown away at that fact that, like, here I am going to go on the Dr. Phil show to tell Haley's story when she made me promise, keep me alive, like, keep me going.
Wow.
Don't let me be forgotten. And I mean, how could she not be proud of me being able to go on Dr. Phil, who, growing up, for me, when I would come home and do my homework, like, Dr. Phil was on the TV. So I was like, as a joke of, like, Dr. Phil raised me, you know, that's like, it was like a staple, you know, like coming home and that being on the TV while I'm working on homework. And so, I mean, he's been around a long time. And so I told them, let me think about it, because I don't like to make the decision immediately. So I called up my parents, told them about it. And I decided, you know, like, you only live once. Like, I would love to tell Haley's story there. So I called him back. I said, yeah, I'm in. And what's crazy is the episode was actually being filmed like a week and a half from the day they called me. Like, it was quick. I thought they were out in LA, but apparently they moved their headquarters to Dallas. So when the time came, Weston and I drove out there, and we actually arrived as he was leaving in his helicopter to go home, which was really impressive. But I got a private tour of the studio and kind of helped, you know, get me more comfortable, and
made a video about that too.
Yeah, made a video about it and got to see all the cool the stuff they do behind the scenes, and it was just really unique to see how it's like done in such a big production. So then let's see, after that Wes and I went to our hotel, and we had to be there at 6:30 in the morning, so we got up super early, got there, and they had green room and all this stuff for us. It was super nice. Like, the team there was just amazing, and it you know, they had food, and they made sure that my suit was all steamed. I was just like, what is happening here? You know, makeup, the whole
And
the
you
whole
look like
thing.
a stud.
Thank you. Thank you. They sure did.
And Weston.
Yeah.
Weston was looking sharp.
I know.
Weston was
Like,
looking
How
sharp.
was that experience for Weston?
You know, I was really you know, at first he wasn't going to be involved in the show, but then they ended up calling back like a couple of days later saying that Weston they realized what a huge part of the story he was.
Yeah.
And they typically don't let kids on the show, but they're like, this is such a unique case that we kind of want to bring him on, like, just to say a few things if he wants to. I was like, yeah, I mean, I'm okay with it. Like, I think that'll be really cool. So, you know, I told Weston that he would be going on the show, and I was like, Dr. Phil may ask you some questions, you know, make sure you look at him, you know, trying to help him be prepared. And he did way better than I ever thought. Like, he did so well, and I was so proud of him. He was happy, cheerful, but it was a great experience.
I can't wait to see it.
I know. I'm excited, and I still don't have an air date yet. I'm hoping to get that this week, but.
So did they ask him? They asked him questions directly, and he answered.
Yes.
How did he do?
There was one question.
I mean, he's 5 years old, dude. Like, there was probably a lot of people behind the
Oh,
camera.
yeah,
there was
like 100 to 200 audience members,
Right.
And you know, Dr. Phil's like, when we come back, we're gonna have a new guest, probably the most important guest yet. And I was like, and so then when we come back, you know, they open up the doors and they walk him down the center aisle, and he's like, you know, because all the girls are going crazy, clapping. And yeah, they walk him down, and he's got this big smile, and I sit him in my lap, and I don't remember everything Dr. Phil said, but I do remember one thing in particular. He said, I've been talking to your dad out here. He sure is proud of you, Weston. And he looked at me and he was like, I'm proud of my dad. Like,
wow.
And I was just like, oh,
Yeah.
you know, and, you know, the audience like, oh, you know, like, he's a great kid. And, you know, he could have gone shy right there, but he didn't. He spoke up, and I was proud of him. So it was a great experience. And uh, I'm just blessed that I got that opportunity. And, I said this on the show. I remember being 23 years old, sitting in my truck. Haley had just told me that if I wanted to not marry her and move on, that it was okay with her, that she knew that she could not give me children. She could not give me the life that she thought I deserved, that our life was going to be broken. And, I told her I'm not going anywhere. Like I'm here to stay. But I went out in my truck and I remember crying and sobbing. I'm 23, found out I can't have children the way I want to. And I just don't see a future for me. I don't see, I know what my life is going to be. Doctor's appointments, bills, heartache, everything's going to be harder. Anything we want to do, it's just going to be a difficult life. And so I was sad. I was feeling sorry for me. I knew what was coming. Yeah. And I felt that I was at the end of the road. This is it for me. I don't have really much to look forward to.
Yeah.
I thought my life was over. And then as I'm sitting on the stage on Dr. Phil, I'm like, here I am 10 years later, and I'm telling you the story. If you don't believe there's a bigger plan, or that, if you stay true to your beliefs and doing the right thing, that God's got your back, then I don't know what to tell you, because it's happened to me. And so that's just something really cool that I'm proud of,
I love that reflection, man. I think you do a lot of what I love to do too, is reflect on moments and take them in and see there's a plan behind it all. There's a purpose behind it that you can move forward with. And, I can't help but to think whenever you're on the stage with Dr. Phil and he's excited, I'm excited to watch the episode. But you said in the last episode that we did with you that whenever you were taking care of Haley and you were by her side and you were documenting all of this because you're creative. You love to turn on the camera and cherish every moment and never forget it. Haley had told you, tell the story, right? Tell the story. And at that moment, you didn't know what that meant. You didn't know that you were going to make reels and commemorate her and make her memory. And we were talking before the podcast that, Haley's memory, how do I continue to carry it on, right? And you're going to share here in a little bit on how you're going to do that. But I said, she's just more than just a memory, man. She's a legend. She's legendary. For the fact that she can inspire and move so many people. She's a legend. And so I loved how you didn't know at one point, you just turn on this camera. And capturing these moments. And now you've made them into masterpieces to go inspire and create change for what you're going to do later on. And you're on the grand stage like Dr. Phil telling Haley's story. I can't help but to think that you're thinking about Haley in that moment.
Oh yeah.
What do you think she thinks of you right now?
I would hope that she's proud, because her greatest fear was being forgotten. I'm like, here I am on Dr. Phil. I think I've accomplished our goal here, that you're not going to be forgotten. And, I texted Haley's whole family that morning before I went on air, and I sent a picture of me and Weston in front of the Dr. Phil sign. And I said, it was an honor to take care of your daughter / sister. It was, it was hard, but I enjoyed every minute I had with her, and it's going to be my honor to share her memory today, and just telling them how grateful I was that I got to be the one to take care of her in those 8 years, and so I wanted them to know how excited I was to share more about their daughter, so that was important to me. And I could have invited family and friends to come, but I kind of like doing that stuff with just not knowing anybody in the audience, just getting it done, I feel like I overthink it. So it was a good time, and met a lot of cool people. So I was blessed to do it.
It's awesome, man.
I think one thing that I really want to talk about, because I think it's a lot of your makeup now, is like you being a dad, you
Mhm.
know, and some of the challenges that I think come with being a single dad, you know,
Yeah.
and some of the things that you've had to, you know, we're coming up on a year, right?
Yeah.
Like this is a lot that you've had to buckle up,
Mm-hmm.
put your big boy pants on, and step up and do what you've done the
Yeah.
last year. But now it's like, now I really got to do it. You know, it's
Yeah.
just me and you, Bob, you know? And so
Mm-hmm.
I want to really go into like you being this. And I think that's what inspires me, is just your ability to be a dad
Mm-hmm.
in the midst of chaos. Right. And then
Yeah.
you have this little boy who's so innocent, and you try to protect him and shelter and like keep him safe from some. I just want to hear like, where are you at? And like, how do you process all this with some of the challenges that
Mm-hmm.
raising a 5-year-old kid, like
Yeah.
it's a full-time responsibility, and it's
Yeah.
a lot. It's hard. Anybody that has kids,
Mm-hmm.
you know, understands it is a lot, and a lot of
Yeah.
responsibilities.
100%. I would say, even before I explain how I think I can be a good dad, is understanding like how I was raised.
Yeah.
Because I think to be a good parent, you're usually parented by good parents, and you just keep passing that down.
Yeah.
And so, I think, a lot of the viewers wanted to know a little bit more about my history and my family life. And I think that'll explain how
Yeah,
I've
go
been able
into
to
that.
become a
We wanna
good
know about
dad.
that.
And so, a little bit about me, I would say I was raised by two incredible parents.
Yeah.
They're still married today, devout Christians. My dad raised us Catholic. I mean, he almost became a priest at one point. He's a very strict Catholic. But he was a great father. He really instilled in me the values that men are supposed to have. And, loyalty, being the patriarch of the family, the leader of the family, being an example of faith, always showing what the right thing to do in your faith, and being that leader of I can tell you he's a very, when I think of Christian and a believer, I think of my dad. He's always researching, reading the word. So that made an impact on me growing up.
Yeah.
And my parents, just the fact that they stayed together, and being able to stay in one home instead of, when parents split, you're bouncing between two houses. And I think being able to have a home that was so stable was really good for me.
Yeah.
And my dad and my mom always taught me a lot of really valuable lessons. And, my dad was really hit home with how you do anything is how you do everything. And taking pride in your work, taking pride in what you do was very important to him. And I think that, and he also taught me your word is your bond. Like what you say you're going to do, like you better do it, because if you don't, then people don't take you as seriously. And I think that is something that's really instilled in me, is like, if I'm going to say something I'm going to do, I'm doing it. Like, because if I back out of it, then it makes me look like a fraud or weak to me. And they also taught me like to never quit, like never quit. And if I was involved in a sport or some extracurricular activity that I ended up not liking or didn't want to do, they never let me quit. Like they wouldn't let me just not show up to the meetings, even though I would beg, like, I don't want to go. It's like, no, you signed up for it. So your word, gave them your word, and you're going to see it to the end. Now, when it's over, you don't have to do it again the next time, but you got to finish it. And I think that no quit mentality is where that came from for me.
Yeah.
And, I had a few things happen to me when I was younger. They weren't like devastating and looking back now, they weren't that big a deal, you know, but in the time when you're that age, they're like the end of the world for you.
Yeah.
But obviously, because of what I've been through today, and I look back and I just laugh that I was so upset when those things happened, but they were instrumental in shaping me to be who I needed to be as a caregiver and a father.
Mm.
And the first thing was I had played baseball my entire life, and I'd grown up with the guys in my hometown that we all played together, and had our baseball tryouts and for high school. And that was my dream, was I wanted to play high school baseball. And I didn't have a terrible tryout, but I didn't have a great tryout. And I unfortunately did not make the team freshman year, which isn't that big a deal. But back then that was devastating for me and embarrassing. It was very hard for me. Seeing all my peers and the guys I grew up playing with that know that I'm just as good, make the team and me not, it was just really hard. But I remember meeting with the coach about, what can I do better at? And, he kind of told me where I could improve. And I remember saying, well, I want to be involved in the team. So can I be team manager? And I think we all know that typically the team manager is the one that has no athletic ability, typically.
Yeah.
Just has a tough time being on the team, and they just want to be involved, like kind of a target to be made fun of sometimes. That's kind of the,
true.
It's sad, but it's true.
Probably matures as you get older into your sport, but like, especially when you're younger and a freshman team, it's more like, you're not good enough to be on the team. But
yeah. So everyone, when they see you as the manager, they immediately know he's not very good. Like, that's what people think. And I told the coach, I said, I want to be team manager, and I'll be the best team manager you've ever had. And I mean, I had to swallow my pride and do this because I wanted to prove that I could be on this team. As much as I wanted to hang my head and be a victim, I realized I needed to take that anger and turn it into my drive. And so I was hustling all over the field and helping with batting practice, every day, going to the games while I'm having to sit in the dugout and watch my peers, some of my best friends, play.
Yeah.
And there I am carrying all the gear onto the bus, and it was just, it was embarrassing for me. Like, I did not like it, but I knew I needed to do it. And so
you didn't quit either.
That's the thing, is I'm not quitting. Like, as much as you want me to quit, I'm not quitting. And so then we, fast forward a year, I did a lot of extra practice. I mean, I will say it made me a lot better baseball player because I was so determined to make it that I really did work very hard, and I actually got way better. And sure enough, I made the team. And when they handed out the letters to find out if you made it, the entire freshman team from the previous year was there waiting for my letter for me to open it. So what does that tell you? That not only do they care, but they had seen my hard work. They had seen what I had done, and they wanted to be there to see me get on the team. Yeah. So it made an impact on them of me just hustling around and doing the best I could. So making the team, that feeling of satisfaction of putting all your hard work into something and determination and succeeding in the end is that really taught me a valuable lesson that I was able to carry forward about, if it doesn't go your way, you can either sulk or you can pick yourself up and use that to fight harder and to never quit, you know? And so that was the first thing that really shaped me. The second thing was I wanted to go to Texas A&M University. I wanted to be an engineer. They have a great engineering school. I got some family that have been there, that have gone there. So that's where I wanted to go. And I went to a high school with a lot of kids, and we had what was called the academy there. So really smart kids that basically took up the entire top 10%. And so, to get into A&M, you got to have a really high GPA, you got to have really high test scores, and you got to, either be in the top 10%. And so it wasn't like I was a bad student. I had a 3.9 GPA, but some of these kids take AP classes and they've got like a 4 or 5 GPA, these crazy. So I just couldn't compete with that. And then my test scores were average, not anything crazy, not anything bad, but not to that level of automatic acceptance. And so I realized to achieve that goal of going to A&M, I was probably going to end up having to go to Blinn or do another route. And so come to find out, it was going to be a little bit easier to go to A&M Galveston and then transfer in. So I found out that I was waitlisted, so I could see how this was going to go. So I was like, okay, I just need to accept that I'm going to Galveston. And everybody's dream is to go to that big 4-year college and be a part of all the fun that's involved with that. And so I remember, like, close to the end of high school, they had college day, and there's all these signs out in the front of the school of the colleges, and you get to sign the back of the one you're going to and take a picture. Well, I'm looking, UT's got, 20, 30 kids, and A&M's got 20, 30 kids, and they're all like my friends that I've grown up with, and they're going to their dream school. And I'm standing over on the side by myself in front of the A&M Galveston sign, And I remember it was that same old feeling of humiliation, of not succeeding the first time, just like the baseball thing.
Yeah.
Seeing the success that other people were having that I want to have, that I felt like I had worked just as hard and felt like I was losing. And it was embarrassing, again. And so, but I remember saying, all right, we're not going to be a victim. We're going to go to A&M Galveston. We're going to work hard, and we're going to end up right where everybody else is. And so that's what I did. I went down to A&M Galveston, which was not a great place. Seeing pictures on social media every weekend of football games, and I'm rotting away down in Galveston in these crappy dorms, and I'm just like I want, like, it made me so much more angrier to drive harder to make sure I did really well so my grades were good enough so I could go. Well, everything went according to plan, and I was able to transfer into petroleum engineering and still ended up at A&M College Station, but it was frustrating to always have to take a harder route to get to my end goal than it seems like my peers do. It seems like they're able to get it on the first try. I'm having to take a detour. But again, another lesson of never quit, keep going, don't be a victim, And then the third thing that really shaped me was, petroleum engineering is a hard degree, and the career is a good career typically.
Yeah.
And how it works is you intern after your sophomore year, intern after your junior year, and then that company typically hires you full time. And so I interned 2 summers for a company, came back to school. Everyone was getting their full-time offers, and these are nice offers, for being right out of college. They're good offers. And so I was really excited to get mine, and the phone call never came. Everybody had now gotten all their offers with their companies. And then I get the call and they say, unfortunately, we can't offer you a full-time offer right now, which I thought was strange. It wasn't until later that I found out that they went bankrupt. And so out of 150, 200 petroleum kids, I was the only kid that had a company go bankrupt. And so I had to spend my senior year trying to find a job when all the jobs have been taken now, because they typically only hire interns. Yeah. So I ended up having to take a job with Halliburton, working in the field making half of what everyone else was making, and I was out in the hot sun swinging a hammer, and which is fine. I'm not against hard work like that, but I wanted to succeed the first time around at something that I really wanted. And that kind of started my career woes of, after almost being there a year, I got laid off because the oil field had tanked. And then I took a second job that didn't have anything to do with my degree. And that's when Haley got sick. And then I was like gone all the time dealing with that. And they let me go because I was trying to juggle Haley's surgeries and all this new diagnosis with trying to work. And I couldn't do both.
Couldn't do it.
And then I worked in sales at another job in the oil field, and that job I loved and met a lot of great people that I still talk to today. And that company merged with another, and the company we merged with took 51% of the ownership, so they basically let it go of all the other guys. So I got let go, found a new job within a week, and started that job in January of 2020. So what do we think happened there?
That's right.
COVID.
Yeah.
So 4 layoffs, all while Haley's sick. Meanwhile, all my friends I grew up with are still working for the same company to this day. And I was just getting beat down repeatedly with things I wanted, success that I wanted to have, and so after that last layoff, that COVID had decimated jobs. And so I was fortunate enough that Haley's dad was willing to say, he had to support us through some tough times because of the medical stuff, and being that young with that kind of medical issues going on, it's just hard to, it's just impossible, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I was very fortunate to have a great father-in-law to help us through that. And he basically said, just take care of Haley and be there for Haley. And when, after a year, when jobs come back, get your job. And then, as the time went on, Haley started to go downhill, and he's like, when we got to the hospice point, he was kind of like, why would I pay someone to help take care of Haley? I'd rather you just do it and be there with her. And that was my honor to do that. And the fact that he had the ability to help us do that. And I was able to have way more, I wanted to be successful in my career. Don't get me wrong. Like, that was
Sure.
And I always beat myself up about that. But I look back and I am grateful that I was able to be with Haley so much, because I got to see so many intimate moments and be with her in so many close moments. And
that's such a blessing, though, like that, because I couldn't imagine not having that and having to, you would have no choice but to figure out a way to go and make enough money to pay for the bill. Like, what is insurmountable debt that just continued to add up for what you guys are. That is such a blessing in itself, that you've got the ability to be that caretaker and not have to stress, as much as you wanted to be successful. Was probably also the greatest blessing in the world, is to just be able to be there and be that caretaker in those moments, because I couldn't imagine not having support and then having to figure it out while knowing my wife's at home. She's not doing, you know what I mean? Like that's such a blessing.
Imagine that scenario. Imagine that scenario where you hit it off with your career.
Yeah.
And you're working 10 hours a day. Boom, this happens to Haley. Now you're like, I got job obligations. And then I'm like, then you weren't able to capture those special moments.
Yeah.
And then
you're right.
And you think about that.
But that's just God, bro. That's how he works, bro.
It strengthens my faith seeing, people say the stars align. I'm like, look, dude, we have a creator
Yeah.
and he's the author of our
Mhm.
life, right? We get to have free will and get to dictate, you know,
Yeah.
we get to make mistakes and we get to learn from those mistakes. But
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, dude, like we can control what we control, and we can't control what we can't control, right? And so
Yeah.
I try to imagine a scenario where you hit it off with your career, but I'm like, God's
Mhm.
like, I got another plan for you right now. You got to be there for my daughter, for my child,
Yeah.
you know. And he's
You're right.
and then on top of that, I think of, and I'm not trying to make this my story or anything, but I want to explain a situation where in the lessons, dude, of
Yeah.
keeping held back on learning specific lessons to make you have a personality of patience, of
Mhm.
long suffering, of endurance, right? Which these are all characteristics and qualities that you have that radiate off of you, and people want what you have. I want.
Mhm.
Zeke can say the same thing. But on my wedding, right? You know, the whole thing with me going to prison, wrongfully convicted. At my
Mhm.
wedding, I sat down with my head coach, and there's multiple times where we went into overtimes, and where we won games, and then there was this one significant one where it was the last game I ever played in my whole life of
Mhm.
football, outside of getting it back in college. But you know, after I was exonerated, but I sat down with my head coach and I told him, I looked him in the eyes and I said, "Thank you for the lessons you've instilled into my life, because they've served me as a man today."
Yeah.
And so when I told him that, I cried, because there was times where I was suffering in prison, and
Yeah.
I think back on this game where we lost,
Mhm.
but he told me something, and he told me the lessons that you're about to learn right now,
Yeah.
it's gonna serve you for the rest of your life. We lost that game. We lost it. And even in the loss, there was still some type of victory within me. Even
Mhm.
with your setbacks, with not making the team and having to get the manager role, you learned
Yeah.
humility, you learned patience, you learned long suffering, you learned to get back and try again.
Yeah.
And then boom, you got it. And then now it's, you know, your career, right? You go, or your college, you have to go
Yeah.
to the low level college, but
Yeah.
you long suffered, you were patient,
Mhm.
and you tried again and you got it.
Yeah.
And then you got the dream, you know, education, but then the career's not lining up, right? But I promise you right now, your victory is awaiting for you, because it has been proven in the past
Yeah.
that long suffering produces victory.
100%.
So when you talk about this, it strengthens my faith, because it's about to blow wide open for you. Somehow, some way, it's going to blow right open for you. And, but it's a beautiful thing, man.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And you know, it's it's hard to believe how far like I have come, like mentally, and like just from where I was to now. I've grown so much even in the last year. But man, you really don't grow unless you have hardships.
That's right.
Like you can't, like
Can't.
if you're not suffering, you're not growing.
Yeah.
Like, and there is so much truth to that.
Yeah.
But you know, going back to when you asked me about being a parent and what that's like,
Yeah.
you know, now that you kind of understand like how my parents raised me and little lessons that I learned along the way, you know, last year, you know, I went from having a partner that could help me, and you know, and there was times where we were doing 50-50, and times where I was picking up more of the slack and whatever her health was that day. But I mean, during hospice, I was taking care of her and Weston. Yeah. And, you know, that was hard. And it was difficult to watch her fade.
Yeah.
As Weston was trying to be a kid and understand. And having to watch that, you know, it was hard for me. It was hard for him, but he was so resilient too. And I think one thing I always tried to do was, you know, through the end was, and people may not like this, but I know he's a kid, but I always tried to treat him as an adult. And what I don't mean like fully, but what I mean is respect him enough to not sugarcoat what's coming.
Right.
To not say it in a way that it makes him feel better. I saw it, you know, for me, respect me enough to just tell me how it is, and we're going to figure out a way to get through it. And so I never, sugar-coated anything with him. I never, like, if we were talking about Haley and he was in the room, we wouldn't spell anything out, that we didn't want him to hear, like, Haley is, D-Y-I-N-G. We'd say, Haley is dying, and he would hear that. He'd hear these conversations. And I think because I treated him older than he was, even with responsibilities around the house and things I make him do. And, I've always treated him older than he was. I was strict on him, because I knew what was coming for him. I'm not doing my job as a man, as a husband, as a father, if I am not instilling the values into him that are going to make him be a godly, manly man, which is what we need in this world. There's not enough.
100%.
There's an all-out assault on manly men values.
Sure.
And, everyone's commenting, we need more men like you, Taylor. Well, we need to stop attacking, godly, manly men. Like, that is what this world needs. And we're, so my job, my role is to not be his friend, but to be his father.
Sure.
And to teach him what is right, what is wrong. And so I've always tried to show by the way I live, and preach the right values and really instill in him the right thing to do. And so, the last year has been tough, and he handled her death better than I expected.
That's what I wanted to ask you is, like, what are some, like, fully transparent, like, what are some of the challenges that you guys are facing? Because it's like, I know you have them, and I mean, whether he's too young, it's like he still isn't too young to comprehend it, like
Yeah.
And I think that's exactly what you're saying is, like, you want to almost shelter them, but at the same time, that doesn't really, he's been able to grieve with you because he knows what's going on.
Yeah.
But I'd imagine you guys have challenges. Like, what are some of those challenges? And I'd imagine you have days where, dude, you want to turn the shower on and cry and punch pillows, like, or whatever that may be. But, like, you guys have to have challenges. He probably has days where he's acting out in ways where it's just like, he's just off,
Yeah.
And what are those challenges, and how are you overcoming them as a single dad?
I would say, a lot of the challenges that we deal with is he's still grasping with what has happened.
Yeah.
I would say that's the main challenge. He understands better than people think, that he knows mommy is not coming back.
Right.
He knows that. He never because he was so young, he never, like, really cried. Like, he'll get sad for mommy and, like, miss mommy, he'll get quiet. But he's never, like, bawled and cried. And that's concerned me. And I'm always asking him, how are you doing? You miss mommy? Like, we always talk about mommy. When we say prayers at night, we say our prayers. And then at the end, I said, do you want to say anything to mommy? And some nights he does, some nights he doesn't. And, he'll say, miss you, mommy. He'll say some of the saddest things sometimes. It just breaks my heart. But, he did have his first, I've never seen it. He did have his first little breakdown a couple weeks ago. I put on this like kind of like EDM song on the TV, and I was dancing around, and I was telling him, come on, dance with me. And he kept, like, trying to hide. He looked like he was embarrassed. He wouldn't do it. And I was trying to pull him up to dance with me, and he just would not do it. And usually he likes to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I finally I paused it, and I got down on my knees. I was like, what's wrong? Well, and he was like, that's something I did with mommy. And just lost it. And I'd never seen him lose it like that. And I picked him up, and we had a good cry together. But that was the first time I ever seen him cry over Haley, which it was good for me.
Yeah.
I want to see that.
Yeah,
I want to see him
sure.
do that. Like, I It lets me know where he's at,
Right.
how I can help him.
Yeah.
But overall, he is a very strong kid, durable kid, and adjusts well to a lot of things. But I'd say, as I was saying earlier, my job, I'm not doing him justice if I am not instilling those values in him, whether people think I'm being too strict on him or not. I think, I get told all the time how well behaved he is and respectful. And I feel like that's truly because of Haley and I, the way we raised him to be that way. And,
Yeah.
that we don't take any, I don't do any slack. So it's, it's, if he's wanting dinner, I cook him one dinner. If he doesn't want to eat that, then that's it. And typically, we started that so young. Well, now he eats anything.
Yeah, that's good.
Because we didn't cater to make him whatever made him happy.
Yeah.
And so I think just those kind of simple things. And, people always are commenting, do you have any parenting advice? And I guess what I would say is figure out what you believe and the way they should be raised and stick to it. Don't change.
Right.
I know you're about to become a dad.
It's a couple weeks.
And so, it's important to stick by your morals and what you believe, because your kids will respect that. And people think that going easy on your child makes you look better or makes them like you more. No, they actually respect you more if you stick to what you believe and are hard on them, discipline them, expect a lot out of them. Kids are very durable, and they'll rise to the occasion more times than not. And so I've seen time and time again how he has persevered, and I'm just really seeing him blossom into this. Even though he's a boy, it's like he's already becoming a young man by the way he talks and acts. And I'm just really proud, even after talking to his teacher this last year, the things that she told me he did that she's never seen young kids do just blew me away at his heart and his compassion and his need to help others. And I just really believe that being a strong...
But don't you think maybe that's a lot of that is because he saw you serve his mom and love his mom and care for his mom in a way that is true and authentic and real?
You're probably right. And I hope
mean?
that is the reason why, because he saw me holding Haley all the time, holding her hand, kissing her, and loving on her, and telling her, Weston tells me he loves me all the time because I tell him I love him all the time.
Yeah.
And just because you tell your son that you love him, or your kids that you love them, and you get all, mushy with them, that doesn't make you less of a man. I think that makes you more of a man.
Yeah.
Some men have trouble saying, I love you, son.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need to have that. You need to tell them that.
That's right.
Because then they're going to go try to find it somewhere else.
Somewhere else. Or in something else.
Yeah.
So what's true love to you?
True.
Actually, a lot of our viewers ask this question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I respect you so much that I want to know this answer.
True love. I honestly believe that true love is when you love someone so much that they could literally do anything and you would still love them. Okay? Because you know who they are when you fell in love with them, you know their heart, and they could literally do anything wrong, but you would still love them because you truly love them.
Yeah.
And
no fear that they'll run away.
You would go to war for them. You would die for them. Like if God came to me and said, I can take Haley or I can take you, I would have hands down said, take me. Like, leave her here.
I'm ready to
go.
No greater love.
And I think when you're willing to die for somebody, that's when you truly love them. And when I was speaking to you can do anything wrong and still love, that's true love. that's God the Father.
Yeah.
I mean, think about what his children do on a daily basis. The sinning that we do.
We're wicked.
The murdering, the
Yeah.
deceit, and, I've been reading Imagine Heaven about all the NDEs, near-death experiences. And, we all picture going to heaven and that God is going to sit us down and say, look what you did here, and play like a movie here and say, you did this wrong. And you did, you shouldn't have done this. Well, it's not that way at all.
Mm.
You actually enter the kingdom and God holds you and gives you love, and you're the one that judges yourself. You do self-judgment. That's what I read, that I've learned from the thousands of near-death experiences that they've wrote about, that you actually replay your own life to yourself and you feel your own shame and guilt of what you did wrong. And God just sits there and says, I love you. I just want you to know I love you. Like, that's true love. I mean, I just think, because Haley could have done anything wrong and I would have loved her still. And I would have died for her in a heartbeat. So that's what I think true love is. I mean, I don't know what y'all, if you agree with that or.
No,
I 100% agree.
100% agree.
That's actually scripture biblical right there, man. There's no greater love than to lay your life down for somebody else. And if you have that intention in your heart, man, there is no true love.
Yeah.
With me and Gabriel, like, we've had this question before, and it was like, for us, when we found out we were truly in love was when the physical got taken out of it, right?
Yeah.
And I think everybody might have a little different personal definition than one another just because of what you've gone through. But I wanted to ask that because that was a lot of what the audience wants to know. But, I'm about to love on a little girl in a few weeks.
Yeah. And, you're not going to be able to say no.
But it's
you're
funny,
gonna have a little girl.
Because, this is funny. It's like everybody says, this is off topic. Everybody says, and I see how much you love Weston, and I know how much I love my daughter. Everybody used to tell me, you'll never understand how much you love somebody until you have a child of your own, right? My dad used to tell me all the time, like, oh yeah, whatever, right? It's so true though. Like, like that's like, I feel so much true love for my daughter. Like, that's how I felt my dad felt about me. You know what I mean? And I know that's a different true love than your wife, but it's the same as well, right? Like the way I love my daughter it's the same love I have for my wife. It's the same love I have for my mom. It's a true love that, again, you would lay your life down, but you got no idea what you're about to, like, you're excited, but I'm telling you, bro, it is crazy.
Dude. I'd say
you become so little. Like, you become like this. It's a little.
I'm figuring out that you can't really prepare for it, dude. Like, you can't prepare. We can prepare. Like, Gabriel and I, we watch videos, and she has more of like an eccentric drive to learn more than me. I'm, guys, dude. We're just like, we'll take it on and we'll just figure it out.
You're gonna figure it out.
But girls are just like organize, and that's just so beautiful because I need that, but I'm at the same time like we're. Now that we're coming on crunch time, I'm like, all right, I need the crash course on this. So we're watching the YouTube videos, we're doing all that. But man, I'm excited to figure out that true love, and I know what true love is. I mean, I love my wife dearly, and we've gone through our own hardships. But man, I think I want to know that other side of the tracks with a daughter, and it's gonna be.
She's gonna be running this house. I'll tell you that.
Oh, I know.
She's gonna be
running my whole schedule.
She's gonna be have you wrapped around her finger. I'll tell you that. I mean,
yeah. And I can't wait for that.
You're gonna
I really can't wait for that.
It's different with girls and boys. Like, you're gonna go easier on her because she's a girl, but like boys, you're a little bit harder on because I want him to be me, but a better version of me. Like, that's what being a father should be like, and raise him to be better than you are, and so it's being a dad is pretty great. And one thing I've come full circle on is now that I am a dad and I see the struggles of being a dad, I see so much now of what my dad went through and the sacrifices he made.
Yeah, that's right.
And the things he did for me that I didn't know in the time that he was doing.
Yeah.
And I was being a little crap head, you know, when I was little, or giving him grief about something. And he was just trying to teach me something.
Yeah.
He knows more than me. He knew better. Like,
more.
And I'm arguing with him, and I just see now being a dad and having those moments with Weston where he's arguing with me or something. And so I send my dad random texts all the time. You know, love you, Dad. Thank you for everything you did for me. Like, I see it now. Like, I understand, you know. So he loves when Weston, like, you know, messes with my stuff, or, you know, like leaves my tools out of something, because my dad just loves it, because he's like, it's just payback. This is what you get. It feels good.
How does that taste?
So I always call him to tell him, you know, what Weston has, some new stunt he's done, and my dad just cracks it. He's like, I just love it. You deserve it.
You deserve it all.
All right. So, hey, man, I got a question for you. You know, this is actually a question from the audience as well. I think we all want to know. You and Haley's story is absolutely beautiful. And with you, what you're doing now with your TikTok and with your Instagram and keeping her memory alive, I expressed earlier that she's just more than a memory. Mm-hmm. She's a legacy. And we want to know, what are you going to do from here on out to keep her memory alive? Do you have any plans on just expounding upon social media? Like, what do you got going on?
Well, obviously with my social media, I'm going to, you know, her 1 year's coming up, July 14th. And I wanted to make sure that I spent this year grieving, taking care of myself, my son, and, you know, making videos that, you know, memorialized Haley. And I feel like I did a good job at that. And, you know, I really tried to memorialize all the special days, Mother's Day, and, you know, my year of first without Haley. Yeah. Well, after July 14th, you know, I'll probably start dialing back a little bit, because there's going to come a time where I do need to start venturing forward, and I can't live in the past forever.
Yeah.
But I do enjoy sharing memories about her. So I do have a lot of videos of just her being her that I may share every so often. But I do, I plan on, you know, I can't just continue to do that over and over again. But to keep your memory alive, you know, I think I'll be able to share those little memories that I have. But most importantly, I spoke about this before, and I've just been so busy and working on some things that I can't really publicly announce yet that I am excited about. But I want to do a foundation, and I need to really start implementing that process. I know you have your foundation, and maybe I'm a little intimidated by it, but I already know what I want to call it, which is Haley's Hope.
Nice.
And I want to do that. I want to be able to have something that people can donate to, something that I can get funds for and give to families that need it. And I think that would be really awesome, and another way to keep her memory alive. And I think she would really appreciate that. Something in her name that can be used for good. So I do plan, hopefully by the end of the year, to get something in the works. Probably just need to talk to you more, get in touch with the guys you used, and get that going, because that could be really good. You know, that could really give me even more of a purpose to keep going with her memory. But yeah, I mean, but obviously in terms of my social media, like I was saying, I can't post about her all the time. You know, I've got to start moving forward, right? And healing and grieving. And I think if I'm continuing to post stories or videos that are sad, and you kind of just get in that rotation of your own grief and your own sadness. But I wanted to devote 1 year of doing that for her. So, you know, going forward, you know, I want to get more into mental health help, maybe some life coaching. I get a lot of messages about how to better themselves, how to eat better, their fitness.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because I think that has a lot to do with the grieving process and healing and taking care of yourself. We talked about this before we started shooting. I was, dude, when I lost my dad, I mean, I put on 50 pounds. I was 310 pounds. You know, I'm 270, 265 now, but I put on a lot of weight, you know, and
Yeah.
you neglect yourself so much when you're so worried about somebody else that you love and taking care of them, that the last thing that you're concerned about is yourself.
Yeah.
Whether that's the amount of sleep you get, what you're eating. It's all about making sure that you're with that person, you're taking care of that person. But there's been a huge transformation in you. And I'm sure even your audience sees, you know, the meal prepping that you do, but the transformation in just you, right? From being in a position where you were under a lot of stress, you were dealing with a lot. And if you're anything like me, I stress eat. It makes me feel good when I eat. Food. Yeah. So I can easily stress, but you look great. I tell you all the time, you're a stud, you know, I tell you that, but
every story comment, like,
he's a stud. He is. I mean, all the audience watching knows he's a stud. He's a great looking guy, but it's because you've taken care of yourself though, in the midst of this grieving process, which I think is, if other people are on the end of this watching and they're in a situation where they're grieving, they've lost somebody, or they're dealing with something that's very difficult, focusing on yourself and how you feel, what you eat, your sleep, your well-being is the most important thing. And so I want you to kind of go into that journey, and it's become almost like an addiction for you, where it's like you feel your confidence, you know, you feel good, you sleep, you talk about your mental clarity and, you know, your sleep, and so talk about that process. And obviously you've had tons of people reaching out to you about it, I'm sure.
I get more comments and messages about my meal prep and my fitness than anything. More than about Haley, about Weston. So that tells me that the majority of this country, people want to better themselves. They just don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
But this is this is what I like to preach on. Like, this is one of my favorite things to talk about, because it's literally saved me. And, you know, to kind of explain the backstory, you know, I've always worked out. I've always been physically active, never struggled in that department. You know, when you're young, you get away with eating what you want to eat.
Right.
You know, as you get older and you get more stressed, you can't eat that way. Well, as I was the caregiver for Haley, which was my honor, I always say that was my honor. I was blessed to do it. I was grateful that I could do that. I will not lie to you. There was a time in those 8 years where I was getting tired. I didn't see an end goal. The career struggles I talked about were running rampant. As every man, they want to be successful in a career. So with the career woes, Haley's health always on my mind, and worried about what I got to do to help her. How's she feeling? What kind of pain is she in? What does she need from the store? Any medicine that, you know, doctor's appointment here, bills coming in here, all that stress on top of me not being able to get the career that I dreamed that I would have going. It didn't happen overnight, but over time I became very depressed. I became a victim, and I was never a victim personality. Well, I found myself being a victim and blaming everybody for my problems. And I had this poor me attitude, and I was very depressed. I stopped working out. I just said, screw it, I'm going to eat what I want. And I went through this about a year. It was bad. I gained a lot of weight. I got up to like 225, I think, and didn't recognize myself. I slipped as a husband. I slipped as a father. I was not a great friend. I was not fun to be around because I was just feeling sorry for myself. And it's funny. We all ask for help, but there's actually a voice in your head that is telling you exactly what you're doing wrong. It's funny how we go, well, I don't know where I'm going wrong. Well, you actually typically do. You know where you can be better. Everyone has that inner personality voice that is telling you exactly what you need to fix, but you just ignore it. You don't listen to it. And I knew that I needed to change, and I was angry. I was very angry. I was angry that this had been my life. I didn't see an end. I knew Haley wasn't going to get healed. She was not going to get healed unless God came down and healed her.
Yeah.
And, I'm optimistic, but I'm realistic. And so
Yeah.
so I knew she wasn't going to get healed. I couldn't get my career going. And I just was like, well, this is my life now, that I'm just going to be a caregiver forever. And it was exhausting. It was very draining. And I wanted some kind of end result goal that I could drive for, that I just didn't see for myself or for our family. And I remember the day. It was October 1st, 2022. And I was just feeling really sorry for myself that day. And I saw a video it was on TikTok or something. And it said something about no one's coming to save you. You got to save yourself.
Yeah.
Stop waiting around for someone to come pick you up and save you. No one's coming to do that because everyone's trying to help themselves right now, And so it really hit me. And I remember I went in the bathroom and I looked in the mirror, I looked at myself and I was pinching my skin and I was like, I don't even know who I am anymore. I did an Ironman in 2017. You'd never know I ever did that. And I looked in the mirror and I just in my mind had this conversation with myself of you need to get it together. You're a husband, you're a father, and you're setting a terrible example. And no one's coming to save me.
So did you start this journey while Haley was still alive?
I started it a month before we found out that she was out of options.
Wow.
So I looked in the mirror and I just said, I'm done. I hit my rock bottom. If I wasn't sleeping well, I was living off Tums when I went to bed. I was going to the bathroom 5 times a day, which was awful, just doing that all day and having indigestion problems, digestive issues, no energy. I just didn't have any drive to do anything. I just was sluggish all the time. And I just you can't keep doing this. And I was I know I can go start working out. I know I can do that. I've done that many times. I've never struggled with that. But I have never tried to fix my eating ever in my life. I've always enjoyed the food.
Just been able to eat whatever. It probably never affected you.
And I was what do I have to lose? All I've done is make excuses. That's all I've done about the food thing. Why not try it and see what happens? Let's try to fix the damage I've done. And so I literally was enough is enough. This is it. So then I went to the store and I knew nothing about food. I self-taught. I was I know that obviously I know I need to eat chicken and rice and, we all know what we're not supposed to eat. We all know what we should eat. So we all make this harder than it has to be. It really is pretty simple.
Yeah.
And so I slowly started doing this. I started out eating chicken thighs instead of chicken breasts, but I was cooking my own food.
Right.
And
That's
I was
key.
I figured out if I meal prep, then I was way more successful. If the food was ready in the fridge, I had no temptation to get on DoorDash and order food that I shouldn't have.
Yeah.
So when you're hungry and craving food, that's when it gets hard. So that's why you got to have food prepared. And so I realized that I had to commit every Sunday to cooking. And if I couldn't do it Sunday, I had to find a time that I could get it done. I had to do it. And so I just started, I said, I've never given it 6 months. We're going to do this for 6 months. And I stopped caring about weight loss. I said, I'm going to stop getting on the scale. I'm going to start focusing on just being healthy. I'm going to stop caring about, watching the pounds tick down. I just want to be healthy. I want to feel good. And I think if I distract my brain that way, and then I also changed the way I looked at food. Food is not for our pleasure. It's for fuel, like for us to live. We've just turned it into this pleasure,
Gluttony.
today. Gluttony, and food is great. I'm a huge foodie.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I had to change, because I was eating too much food, and it was time. And so I made that commitment. And I caught a lot of grief from friends. They teasing me about it. Oh, he's no fun anymore. He doesn't like to go out to eat. He won't drink anymore. That's usually, you're on the right path if your friends are really giving you grief about it.
Yeah.
And
because they all want to be able to do it. They don't have. They just don't have the discipline to do it.
And so
that's why.
I always believe that if you're considered lame in those eyes, then just be lame in those eyes.
That's what I've really accepted. Like, make fun of me all you want. Like, I'm in a better place mentally than I've ever been. And so it was crazy. Within a week, just a week of being disciplined, cooking my own food, going to the gym, my depression was better. My drive was better. Like, I instantly could see the emotional effects from doing the right things from my body. And so,
speaking of emotions,
yeah,
I see a lot of stoic behavior that radiates off of you. And stoicism it's a lot of not suppressing your emotions, but acknowledging them, assessing them, addressing them, and attacking them.
Yeah.
And is that fair to say that that's essentially what you were doing while you were caregiving for Haley?
Oh, I think because of what all I'd been through for so long, and going through this, my health journey really made me stronger, because I started that health journey a month before our big appointment. And so when that appointment happened and it derailed our life and we realized that we were out of options, well, I'd been meal prepping for 4 weeks at that point. I could have let that appointment derail me, right? And been like, screw it, I'm done. I'm going to eat what I want because I'm sad. Well, I did not. I was like, I am determined. We're going to do this. We're going to stay the course. And I realized as I started going through this hospice journey and I was continuing to work out, I would go at 5 o'clock in the morning while she was still asleep and Weston was asleep. It was the only time I could get to the gym and work on myself. Because then when I get home, then I could wake them up, make them breakfast, make myself breakfast, and do my caregiving duties. But I realized, when I was so depressed, I was not working on myself. And if you don't put yourself first, and that may sound selfish, but it's not. If you're not working on yourself and you're not prioritizing your own health, then you're no good to anybody else. That's why they say, put on your oxygen mask before you put on your friends. Yeah. Because if you're passed out, how are you supposed to?
You ain't no good.
Yeah, you ain't no good. So it's so much truth to that. And I realized if I did not put value in my own health and my own mental health, I could not be the husband and father I needed to be to Haley and Weston. And so, when the social media thing happened, that was right at the beginning of my health journey. So you can really see in my videos just the weight loss. And like I said, I don't care about the weight. I haven't been on the scale.
I just want to feel good.
5 months.
Yeah.
Well, coming up on October 1st this year, that'll be 2 years of doing meal prepping. That is blowing that I've stuck to it. Now it's just become a part of my life. There's I don't even think of any other way because I sleep through the night now. I go to the bathroom one time in the morning, which is beautiful. My energy is just off the charts. It's
save you a lot of time too, huh?
Yeah, saves me a lot of time, and the amount of money you save by cooking at home.
That's big, yeah.
Just all of it. And it's not only, I haven't taken Tums I think I took Tums one time because I was on vacation. I was, and I eat what I want on vacation. That is your time to reward yourself.
Splurge, yeah.
Yeah. And I have cheat meals. You'd be crazy not to, you won't be able to last this long if you, but the goal is consistency.
Yeah.
Have your cheat meal, but get back to it the next day. Like, don't let that derail you. And so, I was like 225. Now I weigh like, after the funeral, when I was super stressed, I got down to 183. That was the lowest I weighed in a long time, but now I'm about 190. But, I do a lot of weight training now, and I just eat right. When you pair the two, man, it's like you turn to Superman.
Yeah. I want to, because like kind of on the same topic, but you get this final news about Haley, right? Like you guys are out of options, and you've already committed to this new lifestyle, but at the same time, you talk a lot about your faith and what your faith means to you. I want to go into that because I couldn't imagine being told your wife is out of options.
Yeah.
There's nothing else we can do. Go home, enjoy the rest of the time you have. That's basically what they told you, right? Your faith was tested on all levels from the day one after you got back from your wedding, and they told you she doesn't have much time left. You have to go on your honeymoon, to coming back, to getting the surgery, to thinking, oh my gosh, maybe this is a miracle. Maybe it's, to your faith has been tested. How have you continued to trust God and continue to have faith in the midst of absolute chaos when nothing in this world makes sense?
Yeah. Well, first, I thank my parents for laying the foundation for my faith. So they raised me in the faith. That was huge. Very important aspect right there. Because when the house crumbles or you go away from your beliefs, you still always have that foundation. And, obviously I've had a lot of setbacks and a lot of heartaches and things that I wanted to go my way, which did not. And so it just, I went through times in my life where I was very close to God and very distant, which I think we all do as Christians. But there was definitely a time, like when I was telling you, I was a victim mentality where I was very angry at God. I felt like, I felt like I was being picked on. Like, why can't I get anything to go my way? And it just was very defeating. And I wanted to blame somebody, so I blamed God. But because of my faith and what I was taught, that I know God doesn't do things to you on purpose. He allows things to happen, but he's allowing them for a reason. And I've come a long way because I'm able to sit on that hill and see the perspective. And I see what the last 8 years of my life, of what all I went through and had to see and do, that I thought was so cruel and terrible, which it was. But I'm looking back and I'm seeing what the Lord has done with this story. And he has brought it to the world and what it's done to a lot of people in their own life and their own faith. And I think and also when she passed, that moment really changed my heart because it made death real to me. Like,
that's right.
You lose your grandparents.
Yep.
Like, it's almost like even though you watch your grandparents pass away, you're like, you don't even think twice about it. Sometimes they're old.
Supposed to die.
But when you see someone that's not supposed to die, that I was so close to,
that's right.
It really was like, wow, like, we are going to die. Like, and my wife, my best friend, just died in front of me. And when you have finally, I think, because I have finally I've almost accepted death at 32, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Like, because, and I've been working through that book, Imagine Heaven, which is a great book. If anyone is curious about,
I struggle to read that book.
And
it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
Real.
And so with that, I know heaven is real.
Yeah.
And there's just too much evidence that it's real. And so I guess when you've accepted death and you know where you're headed, it makes your trust in God that much easier. Like, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So that's just how I feel about it. I see now that this was given to me for a reason, this story, this journey. So I guess I'm standing on my mountaintop yelling out what I believe, my testimony. And I think it allows me to just have that strength, that stoicness, and also, with going back to the fitness thing and this, but I'm a very process oriented individual. And I think a lot of people get caught up in the end result and not the process. And with staying stoic and strong in your emotions is, controlling what you can control. Like, why stress out about something you have no control over? And with the process oriented kind of thing, I want to be fully where my feet are, be where my feet at, be in the moment, in the process of what I'm trying to achieve, and whatever that is. And so, to compare it to a football game, if you're goal oriented, you're going to stress out about the end score, and you're going to overlook things through the game because all you're caring about is looking up at the scoreboard. But if you're process oriented, you're going to put 110% effort into the play you're about to do, where your feet are. When that play's over, we go to the next one. And if you do your job on every play, the scoreboard is going to take care of itself.
At the end, that's right.
And so I believe if I do what I'm supposed to do as a dad, and I stay where my feet are, be in the moment with my son, teach him the right things, do the right things, and not stress out about what I got to do a month from now. Be present where my feet are at and control what I can control.
Yeah.
Then, I think that allows me to be that strong father figure. And, especially with the fitness thing, am I going to stress out about, I want to lose 20 pounds, or am I going to be where my feet at and put all my effort into the process of like what I need to do today?
Yeah.
And if I win this day and I win tomorrow and the next day, then you're going to achieve the end result that you want.
People would call that enjoy and embrace the process.
Yeah.
Trust the process.
My high school coach always said this: master the boredom of repetition. Like, you literally, to succeed, you got to repeat, and you got to not get bored with it.
Yeah.
It's
My
just
coach
the
used
truth.
to say, practice doesn't make perfect, it makes permanent.
Mm-hmm.
He says, you'll never be perfect. Like, you won't do something perfectly. You'll just do it permanently.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be second nature to you.
Yeah.
I think that's good though, because it's like, I think a lot of people too can see you and be like, man, Taylor's really strong. Taylor's really got it together. Man, Taylor's handled this really well. I'm handling it like shit. I don't know how Taylor's handling it. But I think you're human, right? And I'm human. So like, what are some of the struggles that you have, that you face, just being fully vulnerable with people, whether that's being a single dad, whether that's being a widow, whatever that may be? Like, what are some of the struggles that you're facing right now that?
I would say, obviously, my grief.
Mm-hmm.
It can come, like, everyone sees that I'm a strong figure online, but if you don't think that, like, I could be laughing at dinner when we go to dinner later,
crying on the way home,
and cry on the way home, it definitely happens.
I feel that.
And I'm not going to be the guy that's going to set up his camera and film himself crying to document grief.
Right.
Like, I already hate setting up a camera on a tripod as it is. Like, I try to film everything real as it's happening, like, in my hand. And, I'd say another struggle of mine is, and I'm sure people have figured out, but I am basically doing, like, everyone wants me to document my journey now. Well, like, that takes a lot of time and effort to do that.
Right.
And so it's kind of turned into my career. And I'm sure people have figured that out, and that's just the way it goes when you get big online, and it's you know, everyone thinks that because you have a lot of followers that you make thousands and thousands of dollars. Well, they're sadly mistaken. Like
Right.
there's a lot of effort that goes into it, and luckily I make enough that I'm able to do it as a job. And I'm gonna, I enjoy inspiring. I want to have an account online that you can come and watch with your family, watch with your kids, that you can, see a video and go, man, I need to go take a walk with my son and talk with him. I want people to be
value.
to be affected. And that's what I like to make. I feel like there's so much trash online, and I want to make authentic stuff. And so that's a struggle of mine, because being vulnerable online is not easy. I don't have trouble posting to 3 million people. I have trouble posting when the people I grew up with and the people from my hometown see it. That's what my struggle.
Yeah.
And I find that hard for me. Like, I don't care what Joe Blow thinks. Like, I care what my friends think. Like,
But don't you think they're proud of you? Like, what would make you think that they were anything less than?
I don't know.
Or is that your own insecurities?
I think they've maybe my own insecurities, but
I'm the same way. This dude can love me, and I can walk out the door and be like, Greg doesn't like me. Like, that's just how my brain works, right?
Yeah.
But if I had to guess, every one of them people that are listening to right now, like, it's the complete opposite of what we tell ourselves.
Yeah,
I think that at least for me, that's my own insecurities that I deal with.
I know when we first started this podcast, I was like, oh man, I shouldn't have wore that short shirt, or I should have gotten a haircut, or I should have said this better, or I should stop using filler words like literally. So I was like, dude, I'm my worst critic. Jacob told me that one time when I told Jacob, I was like, dude, cut that out. Like that's I'm embarrassed. He's like, dude, you're your own worst critic, Greg. Just chill. And
yeah, it's just tough, because you also, like, even my close friends, like, they know who I am, and I'm a big goofball. Like, people really don't know how goofy I really am.
Oh, you're a stud.
And
You're a big stud.
And I want to start opening up more about who I am and more goofy, but my friends I think my really close friends are like, they get in my comments when I post stuff on Instagram, and they just heckle,
mess with you, they troll you,
because they know I'm a big goofball, and so I think my struggle is with that, because I went from being their friend, which I still am, but now, like, we'll go out and I'll get recognized sometime. That's different. That's a shock to them.
Yeah,
because they see me as the same way, which I am, and I see myself that way. I'm not any different than I was. I don't see myself any differently. I just see myself as I have a platform to change people. That's the only difference I see now.
But I also think too, like, it wasn't like you were seeking this.
Yeah.
Like, this is God, bro. Like, that's it. Like, it wasn't like, there's some people that go and seek to be famous online. They seek to be an influencer. They seek to be something of significance of a following, right? Like, this came naturally. And when it comes naturally, it's from God. That's all it is, right? And so, like, I truly feel like every video you took over the last 10 years, you didn't know it, but he knew it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you're like, oh, my career path. Well, maybe this is your career path. Maybe your career path is sharing Haley's story. It is sharing the grief. It is sharing the struggles. It is sharing what it's like to be a single dad, what it's like to be a widow at 30 years old, 31 years old. Like, maybe that is your call.
Well, that's what I've really come to realize, is maybe that's what I was supposed to do.
That's what
I mean, I've always had a gift at making videos, and so, I think one of my biggest struggles is I never wanted anyone to think that I was trying to, like, make money off of Haley.
Sure.
That has been my hardest thing to deal with. Like, I've lost sleep over it,
But everything that I've gotten to know about you is, like, it doesn't come from a place like that. It
Yeah.
comes from a place like, I just want to share her story,
Yeah.
and I want to show, like, it doesn't come from it's always came from a place of
Yeah.
just truth and,
Mhm.
and real, like, authenticity. Like, it's never come from a place. So I told you from day one, that should never be a concern, because I truly believe if Haley was sitting on that couch right now, she would look at you and be like, I'm so freaking proud of you.
I know she
I'm
would.
so proud of
That
you.
she would.
This
She
is
really would.
exactly what I told you should be doing.
Yeah.
And you're doing it.
Somebody told me one time, man, that, you know, being wrongfully convicted at the age of 19, then getting exonerated 6 years later, some people are like, what are you going to do now? Right? What would you do? What would you do if you get spit back into society after being paid a monster, going through prison as a wrongfully convicted child molester, and then getting spit back into the world? What would you do? And for the longest time, I asked myself that.
Yeah.
And how do I move on? How do I move on after I proved my innocence? And how do I move on? Do I sit on the sideline, allow this to continue to happen? Or do I go out there and just start something? I mean, I don't know what that might look like, but somebody told me one time, you're creating your mess, your mess, and you're putting it into a mission. And, you know, moving forward, I think with the foundation with Haley's is that you're creating a mission, right?
Yeah.
For women with ovarian cancer, or anybody going through some type of cancer, or loss, or widowed husbands out there, single dads. You know, speaking of single dads too, we want to address a question that I know the audience has a lot, you know, and you've created this image of an authentic, true man. Like what you have, a lot of men want, a lot of men try to strive for, and a lot of women are attracted to that. You know, a lot of women say, man, dude, like if I could just have a Taylor come up to me in my life, life would be made for me, right? Like you're a woman's dream, dude. And so, like, dating after all this, it's a tough and sensitive question.
Yeah, I get it a lot.
Oh, it is a tough question. It is a sensitive question. But you know what? I have the same conversation with my 60-year-old mom.
Yeah.
Right? Who doesn't deserve to be alone for another 30 years. She doesn't.
Yeah.
She doesn't deserve to be alone, you know? And so I'm really curious, what is that, like, that dating life? Is it a thought? Is it, you know, I'm sure you and Haley probably had conversations about this, right? I mean, knowing what she was going through, I'm sure this is something you guys talked about.
Yeah.
Maybe the audience can perceive it a certain way. But I think it's important that you share that and share your conversations that you had with Haley about that, because it's because of you that me and my wife have had the conversations that we've had. And I've told her exactly, if something happens to me, this is exactly what I expect from you. Nothing less. I don't even want you to think, is this right or is this wrong?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, if something happens to me, this is what I want you to do.
Yeah. I mean, I get the question a lot. And I get it. You know, I stood by Haley. We were high school sweethearts. We were madly in love. I'm a Christian, Eagle Scout, Iron Man, petroleum engineer, loyal man, like, who values taking care of himself and being a good dad. Like, I get it. Women want that. Like, I don't blame them for that. And yes, I get it a lot. And so I've really tried to make sure that I took time to really work on myself for a year at least. You know, Haley was like, we had our talk, and many times she's obviously, I don't want you to be alone. Like, I want you to find somebody, but they better be perfect. You know, she always would, they better be great and all that. And she was just really wanted to make sure I found the right one, and waited and took my time. But she wanted me to find somebody, like, you know, she wanted Weston to have that motherly figure, you know, all that. And so it was important to her, and we had that talk, and I think people comment a lot asking, did you and Haley talk about that? Yes, of course. She would say, I want you to move on, but the thought of you with someone else makes me want to puke. Like,
Sure.
which is understandable.
Yeah.
And I'm still like, I will always love Haley. Like, you know, and another thing I get a lot that really upsets me, honestly, is the fact that I don't have my ring on anymore. Well, I explained that authentically and genuinely, that I've lost over 40 pounds. It was falling off my finger and I didn't want to lose it. And I get mad because I get it. If you have a ring on, then you're saying that you're still committed. If you take it off, then it's like saying, I'm ready to date again. Well, what does a tangible piece of metal have anything to do with my love for Haley?
Nothing.
What is that? Doesn't make me love her any more or any less.
Nothing.
So
honestly, that's nobody else's input.
and people get so bent out of shape about it. And I'm like, it means nothing. Like, I will love her to the end of days for me. Like, and so I think they think if I don't have it on, then I'm like secretly dating, you know? And so here's the struggle I am realizing, because I've taken my time. I haven't done anything. I've really given me some time to think about what I'm going to be stepping into, you know, and I will admit I am getting close. You know, I'm getting lonely, and I miss having a companion. And I think people don't realize how much grieving you do during hospice, during the disease.
Sure.
Like, I knew from the day I married her that I was going to have to bury her. Like, I knew accepting marriage that I would be burying her. Like, I knew that. So if you don't think that I thought that I will be on my own one day for every day for 8 years, of course that thought crossed my mind. And every time you think about it, you're processing your grief. And so, yeah, we're coming up on a year, and I am stressed about it because I do get recognized in public sometimes, and I know that's going to happen. You know,
you have a spotlight, and
it's almost caused me to, and I'm not asking for sympathy. I did it to myself. I know what I stepped into. It's a part of social media. I don't need anybody's sympathy or someone to feel bad for me. Like, I know what I did, and it's just the road that I'm on. And so it's kind of like changed my view of it, you know. And I honestly, who I feel bad for the most is the next girl.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, I get it. Some of my followers, they love Haley, and Haley is great, and she's a legend, like you said, an amazing woman, greatest woman I've ever known. You know, but there will come a time when I will move forward, and I just know that this poor girl is going to just get torn to shreds by not all my followers, but some of them who are very loyal to Haley and love her dearly are going to definitely come for her head.
Yeah, and I hope that they don't. And I hope that the people that are listening to this can put themselves in your shoes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at 32 years old, the thought of spending another 60 years, 50 or 60 years by yourself, like, nobody deserves that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think it's definitely a topic that I'm sure you probably think about all the time. And dude,
I do. I mean,
for me, for somebody who's, I'm not afraid to admit this, I'm super codependent. Matter of fact, without my wife, dude, like, I mean,
well, I hate being alone.
Yeah, me too.
I
don't
it.
like being alone. I don't like being by myself, you know? And so
I'm still stuck on when you said I'm getting to a point where I'm lonely.
Yeah.
And like when you said that, I was just like, crap, dude. Like, yeah, he's getting lonely.
Yeah, luckily I got Weston. If I didn't have Weston, that would have been really bad. And so I'm another moment in my life of getting down the road and having perspective and being thankful that we did have Weston. He saved me.
Mm.
And I'm just trying to figure out like how I can navigate this the best way and take it slow and not make any crazy decisions. And so I know it's coming, and I'm going to have to deal with hate about it, but it's my life. And if you got a problem with it, you know, I don't care.
Yeah, and I hope the people that are watching this, like, I hope they can sympathize.
The majority of my,
with you.
like 95% of my followers are very supportive of it, but you're going to get that 5%.
Sure.
They're going to be like, how could you move on? Like, you don't love Haley anymore. I'm like, you know, it could be,
That will never
it
change.
doesn't matter how long I wait. It's not going to be long enough for some people.
Yeah.
And I've come to the realization of that. And at the end of the day, I got to do me.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I got to do what's best for me.
You deserve to be happy.
Yeah.
You know?
Do you?
And the reality is, Weston deserves a really good woman.
I know he does.
He really deserves that, because there's nothing like a mother's love. And I know the next person, like whoever God brings in your life, Haley is going to direct them right to you, bro. She's going to direct them right to you. And that woman is going to fit perfectly in that role. And
Yep.
Weston is going to love that woman, and that woman is going to love Weston the same way that Haley did.
Mhm.
And that's the only way. That's the only way. And Haley will bring that person to you. I know she will.
Yeah.
I really believe that.
I do too. And I guess my biggest thing that I'm so like nervous about and worried is, like, Haley is all I've ever known. Like, she was my person, like my
Yeah.
soulmate, my high school sweetheart. We grew up together. And I just know whatever dates I go on, or any girl that I talk to, I'm going to be constantly comparing them, and I'm going to have to learn that I can't do that.
Yeah.
And that it's not fair to that girl, and it's not fair to Haley. And I can't think of it as replacing Haley. It's just a new chapter,
That's right.
a new version of a wife.
Yep.
And that's going to be hard. That's going to be a lot of change.
Yeah. And I talked about Mason. Mason was on this podcast, and Mason has a girl, Sammy, who's
Mhm.
in his life. And we talked about Lorelai, who's been on the Get Back, is going to come on the Get Back. And I truly believe that, like, the right person that steps in that role
Mm-hmm.
will love Haley just as much as you love Haley.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that's the only way. But I truly believe that will happen. I tell my mom the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, if somebody else comes in your life, they're going to love dad just the same way that you loved him, you know, and they're going to understand that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know, and I want that right person to be okay with me talking about Haley.
You have to be.
And
I mean,
being
you're gonna be leading your life.
You have to be.
yeah, and being okay with ordering pizza on Haley's birthday
That's right.
for Weston.
Yeah.
That's right.
And, you know, celebrating her every year that she's been with our Lord and Savior.
That's right.
And, you know, not being like, why do you talk about her all the time?
Yeah.
You know,
That's right.
she was part of my life for
That's right.
16 years. How do I not
If
talk about
anybody
her?
does that, they got
No, they got jealousy within them.
they got to go. But that's what I'm saying, though, is I don't even think that you would attract that person, because you would never let somebody that like that close to you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's why it's like, you protect that, you guard that with strong walls,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and you'll know. But you're a very smart guy. You have a strong level of discernment and knowing what's right and what's wrong. And I think God and I think Haley will bring that right person in your life.
I
at the right
know
time.
for a fact that she's sending somebody, and it's going to be a challenge. I mean, I've been a part of her family for 16 years, and just the thought of, like, I'm going to be getting to know a new family, and we'll be a part of another family.
Yeah.
Like, I'm grieving the loss of a lot of things, a lot of people, a lot of change has happened in my life, and I don't like change, you know, and I've just had to accept the change. And I mean, I'll admit, since Haley passed, our little family unit doesn't feel the same.
Yeah.
I mean, Haley was really the glue that held us all together, and losing her is really, it's been a bomb that's gone off in the family, and we're all still close and working on paving our new path without, you know, our precious Haley. So it's, I'm just so blessed to be in their family, and that they still want me to always be a part of the family, and they love getting Weston, and I think they feel closer to Haley when they have Weston around. So I love letting them be around him as much as they want. And I'm a blessed man. I'm grateful. I know there's a lot of new things coming for me, and I'm just looking forward to paving my new road.
We're excited for you, man. I'm
Yeah.
excited for you. I know God's got big things in store for you, bigger than you can imagine. I think some doors are going to open in the near future.
Mm-hmm.
Can't wait for the Dr. Phil episode to air. And I'm just excited for, these next chapters of your life. And, I think that you've been prepared. I think these last 8 years, you've been battle tested. 10 years, you've been battle tested. And I think that God has prepared you for the moments and the doors that are about to open
Mm-hmm.
that, brother, you can't close.
Yeah.
And you talk about career and what's next. Brother, God's going to open doors for you where you don't even have to stress about a petroleum engineer job.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to happen,
Yeah.
and I think that's just because of the faith that you've had in him and the faith that you've walked through this entire journey, man. I really believe that.
Yeah.
I think the life you're choosing to lead right now, Taylor, is one to keep, of course, Haley's memory and legacy alive through your foundation that's coming. And I know any woman that steps into your life, you allow into your life, is going to be totally okay with you continuing to keep her legacy alive, and will be overjoyed to partake in keeping her legacy alive and going out and changing. And I think, just think of how you are truly, I know it's a paradox because story's tragically beautiful, but you are truly blessed with how you choose to now lead your life and how you choose to react to pain, to sorrow, right? To tragedy. And so you're now being able to be a blessing to others. We're not just blessed for ourselves, we're blessed to be a blessing to others. And you choose to exemplify a life led by that. And I think, this is an awesome part 2 of the Taylor's episodes. And thank you, Mother, for coming on.
And stay tuned, because we got a special co-host coming on an episode.
We got a special co-host. No spoilers or anything. But we got
a special co-host. And if you like this new co-host that we have, like, comment, subscribe, turn your notifications on, and maybe, just maybe, he will be a forever co-host.
Totally up to you, actually. Totally up to you guys.
It's been a great part too, though, man. It's I think there's been a lot that we've been able to discuss that we needed to discuss before, but again, it's like trying to cram everything in an episode.
It's hard, dude. It's hard with you because it's just like so much we could talk about.
I just couldn't believe how many people wanted another episode. That just blew my mind. I call it Haley's story because it is her story, and I like making it about her. So it's weird when people want to hear about me. So it's just different. And so I was honored to be able to talk about it today.
Well, we appreciate it, man.
One message. You know the deal. One message you can give to the world right now. Really important to you.
Really important to me. I would say, because it saved me, is my message would be put value in your own health and putting value into spending time working on yourself a little bit every day. You've got to have that me time. And I cannot stress to you enough, put the right things in your body and get moving. I can't stress it enough. I have been through some trauma.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here telling you that I'm 0 anti-anxiety medicine and 0 antidepressant. And I'm not saying that medicine is bad. Everyone needs it. I'm just telling you, does that not prove to you that is what I've been through? The fact that I'm really focusing on positive habits, physically active, eating well, Bible study, friend time, family time.
That's right.
It has allowed me to be able to be in a better place mentally to combat my grief. And if that's not proof enough right there, I don't know what else is.
So what is he?
That's right, man.
What is he?
What
is he? He's a stud. He's a stud.
He's a stud. Is that Donald Trump in the background?
Taylor Odlozil is a stud, let me tell you.
You heard it from Donald.
That's another time. That's another time. Don't spoil it. That's another time.
Hey, guys, if you like this episode of the Get Back Podcast, like, comment, subscribe, turn your notifications on. And, guys, we'll see you next time on the Get Back Podcast.